Okay, now that we have trimmed and stripped and fluxed and tinned and soldered our motor connectors to our motors and our power connectors to our switch, it is time to go ahead and solder to the Malenki. This section has probably the most tips, and this is where you'll see why it's been so important to do as good of a job as possible of preventing strays and keeping the ends of the wires as tight as they can get, because it makes the final solder so much easier and you end up with such better joints. So we're going to start by bringing the power in from the left, and you'll want to put the power into the middle too, because this is be our first solder joint, so there's nothing in the way. It'll be easy to solder these two, and by these two being in the middle, when we bring our servo power in from the back side of the Malenki, you'll still be able to easily reach the outer two rings because these two are not in the way. So we use the Omnifixio board. I do like the Funtac, but it's a little messy for some. So we'll use the Omnifixio for this, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab where it leaves the solder pads exposed so that we don't have to move it in the next step. And I grab at an angle because it makes it much more stable. If you go straight up from the bottom, this will tend to move around quite a bit more on you. And again, we'll bring the power in from the front to the middle two. And these Omnifixio clamps are really nice for this kind of thing. Just ease of setup. So we want to have a downward angle coming off the Malenki, because in the bot it sits at a little bit of an angle, and we don't want these reaching up and getting towards the top armor. So we'll set that up on a bit of an angle. You can see that I've made sure that my insulation is down flush with the circuit board itself, and we'll be soldering in this way. I'm gonna hold this up because it makes it easier for both of us to see. We'll go ahead and zoom in on this. And this is honestly one of my favorite parts. I'm using a more normal pin tip, soldering tip. I think a lot of people have seen the claw that I really like, but those are not available on all soldering irons. So this is a very common tip. So what you want to do is, one, not bump the camera, but you want to put the iron in next to the wire to heat the ring itself. Then you'll flow the solder in. And because you heated the ring, the solder flows all the way into the ring, making a really good electrical and mechanical joint. So same thing here. I'm going to put the iron in next to the wire, making sure that I'm heating the ring. Then I'll flow in the solder. When I see that the solder has kind of sunk, like when it flows down the ring, that's when I can go ahead and take the iron away. So those joints are good. There's no gold visible on those particular rings. So those are ready. Clean my iron, put it away. Then we'll be doing the servo connector, power and ground. And again, those come in the back, and you can see why we went ahead and left. Let these be on the outside because we'll be able to reach them easily. Again, the beauty of Omnifixio, it's just so easy to do that kind of thing. This one, these can be straight, again, because of the angle. And here we can set this up so you can easily see it. So we'll stick the iron in. Try to make sure that you can see this. This is another advantage of the claw, is it helps me keep the iron out of the shot. There we go. So I put the iron in to heat the ring. I'm gonna flow the solder into the ring. I'm gonna watch for it to sink. Once it sinks, I can take the iron away. Same thing here. Iron tip into the ring. I'll flow the solder in, and if I make sure I push the solder kind of to the bottom of that hole, it makes sure that it gets the solder to flow even to the bottom edge of that ring. So you can see we have no gold visible. So that one did pull back a smidge, that insulation. So what I do at this point is I'll get my iron in here to heat this joint again, while I make sure that I can work that wire in from the back. So you can see how that let me get that insulation all the way back to flush with the circuit board. And if you end up pushing too far, and you feel like you don't have a good volcano, that you have kind of a little tower sticking out, that's the beauty of flush cutters. Just trim that off so you don't have a hot lead sticking up any higher than you want. So there's our power and ground installed here. We'll zoom back out so you can see the next setup. So these are done. We won't be heating that joint anymore, so we can remove those. Remember how I said that we'd keep the solder pads exposed? So we're going to be connecting the servo signal wire to that W2. And we'll go ahead and zoom back in. So the little holes in the solder pads, those are vias. It means it takes the electrical connection from the top, or from this side of the board, all the way down to the other side of the board via that hole. So it's not a solder ring. You don't need to try and stick the wire into that hole. You treat it like a normal solder pad, which means, or normal PWM pad, solder pad. You'll heat the pad with the iron. You'll flow solder onto the pad to make a little pillow, and then you'll surface mount the wire. So the servo signal wire will be coming in on the surface. Now, what I like to do with these is I'm actually going to try to make sure I heat the wire and the pad, or the pillow, at the same time. When I get good flow all the way through, I can take the iron away, and I end up with a really good joint that still has plenty of solder on the wire and down to the pad. So we can zoom back out. Clean our iron, put it away for the moment, and then we will be doing our motor connectors. So get this out of the way for the moment. We're also going to tuck that out of the way because we'll be soldering to this side. So it's good to have the power wires out of the way so that it just gives us easier access while we're soldering. So our two motor connectors are going to be coming in from the back. The longer one will use this clamp, and that goes to the bottom, to the R rings, and the shorter one will be going to the L rings, and we'll use the closer clamp. So it's funny, this is actually about the finickiest part of this. Once you've done it a lot, it's finagling wires from the ends. So again, I'm watching to make sure my insulation stays tight against the circuit board, and back this away to slide this one in. I'll bring this back up into the jaws. So I'm looking to make sure that all 4 of my wires. Insulation is pretty snug down there against the circuit board. If I feel like any of those isn't snug, I can twist or push on that and get those in. Tuck that there. Try to make sure we all have a good view for the next step. So I can see that I have a good amount, the right amount of wire sticking through those solder rings. And once again, so I'll make sure I've got enough solder. Nice little arc on that. And then put the iron into the ring to heat the ring. Now let it touch the wire. I'll go ahead and flow some solder in. There we go. No gold left. Same thing here. Get the iron into the ring. Flow in the solder. The solder sinks. And pull the iron. Iron into the ring. Flow the solder into the ring. It's sunk. Pull the iron. There we go. Let's see, we've got no gold visible anywhere. So we had enough heat and solder to flow everywhere. Our insulation is still down flush. That you can actually see that I flowed in enough solder that it came all the way through, meaning the whole solder ring is full of solder, making a really good, strong joint. There doesn't appear to be any solder anywhere there shouldn't be. So we'll go ahead and zoom back out, take off our clamps, and there's properly soldered Malenki.